Hi all, I'm Julia and I got an 805 on my GMAT focus. While the GMAT is a test of knowledge to some degree, it's also a test of specific skills and reasoning. What I mean is, to do well on this exam, you have to not only understand the topics that it covers, but how it expects you to apply that knowledge. That's why a study guide for a different exam that covers the same sorts of topics, or even prep materials designed for the GMAT Classic instead of the Focus, can only get you so far. How you prepare matters. There are 3 steps to doing well on the GMAT, question by question. First, understand what the question is asking for. Obviously, it's hard to answer a question if you don't know what it's asking for. We all know that. When we're in the middle of the exam though, pressure is high and things that are super clear to our relaxed mind are not going to necessarily feel like the priority that they need to be for us to succeed. Resist the temptation to cut corners. Take the time to understand the questions and what they're asking for and the tools and information that the stimulus provides to you. A question that asks you to find an assumption the argument relies on will require a different answer than one that asks you to weaken the argument, but both types of answers are very likely to be present among the choices. By understanding what's being asked, you can avoid those trap answers. Second, select an efficient way to get to the answer needed. This is the step that you will spend the most time directly developing during your GMAT prep. And it's made up of 2 components. Half of it is that you have to know the methods available to solve problems. That's why there are so many topics that one could study to prepare, from linear equations to probability, or the difference between what type of data is best expressed on a histogram versus like a bubble chart. The other half of selecting an efficient method to get to the answer is the selecting itself. While you study, you learn one topic at a time. That's how learning works. And the topics often build on each other. A well-structured study guide will introduce topics in a way that makes the later steps fit more logically in your mind because they've built on what you've already learned, and shows you how the different subjects are interconnected as a result of topic by topic learning. You will do questions on a new topic right after learning about the topic, so it'll be fresh on your mind. This is one of the ways to drive home concepts, and of course, it's a necessary part of making sure that you're actually learning in a way that's applicable to solving problems, since that's your ultimate goal. But it takes a lot of the method selection pressure off of you earlier in your practice questions. Of course, you're looking for the structure of the passage because you just read a bunch of lessons about how to identify a passage's structure. For me, the official mocks offered the best practice for getting used to totally random questions and having to select the best method of solving them from all of the methods I learned about during my studies. The third and final step of succeeding on a GMAT question is to implement your method and get to the answer without making mistakes along the way. This, like most things, is easier said than done. For me, it meant making myself write down every step of my quant work, even though I wanted to skip through the easy ones. Writing the steps down increased my accuracy because honestly, my written math is much more reliable than my mental math. It had the bonus benefit of providing a record to go back and review if it turned out I'd made a calculation error. In fact, writing things down was one of the most significant score boosting steps I took. In verbal questions, I was also very reluctant to write out my argument breakdowns initially, as I figured it was a waste of time and energy, right? Once I started to not only identify the components, the premises and the conclusion, and also to physically note them down in my notebook along with any assumptions or anything else I noticed about the argument, I was able to consistently track the logical flow of the arguments in front of me. That helped me to see how the conclusions were supported, where they were vulnerable, and what assumptions they relied on more clearly, which dramatically reduced my errors. The more time and energy that you are willing to invest in these questions, the more you can understand how they work, and the better your accuracy will be. This also means that it's better to practice untimed and fully understand the question in front of you than it is to adhere to the time limits before your skills have been adequately honed. So don't use the 2-minute per question target time as an excuse to give up early on a question and look at the answer explanation, because that's where you're honing your best skills as you rule out answers until you get down to the final one. The 3 steps: understanding what's being asked, selecting an efficient method to get to the answer, and executing your chosen method without making any errors, may not always be easy, but they are simple. If you take the time to practice these steps, you will get faster and more accurate at tackling questions. The GMAT is about, in its most basic form, answering one question correctly and then the next until you are done. With these 3 steps, that's nothing you can't handle. Good luck.